feel the best way for me to get my story out is to tell it to you myself. I thought of hiring an interviewer, but felt the interviewer might not survive long enough to finish his assignment. You see, I am a vampire, and any living human is fair game, as you will soon understand. There is no sanctuary from the disease that flows through my veins. No cure can be found, and I have had the best doctors over the endless years try to heal me. Blood transfusions only make me stronger, though they do not satisfy my hunger. I have taken every medicine invented over the many hundreds of years I have existed. I would love to exist no longer, but I have not yet found a way to die. You've all heard the fictitious tales of such vampires as Count Dracula and Lestat, heard how the sun will burn them, a wooden stake through the heart will kill them. None of it is true, for I have tried it all. It is simply impossible to kill something that is already dead. There is one incident where one of my victims caught me off guard and swung his 3-foot razor-sharp blade directly at my throat. As the sword contacted the soft tissue of my neck, I just knew this would be the end. My nightmare would finally be over, but it was not to be. My skin and severed arteries began healing as the blade passed through. By the time the man finished his follow-through, my neck was completely healed. I stood with my neck stretched out to give the poor man another try. And again, my neck healed itself, almost as fast as it was severed. I know non-existence for me is not an option. When we chance to pass in the night, death merely runs from me, like one of my human victims. One might think that after hundreds of years, I would grow cold and unfeeling to the pain and horror I have caused countless people. That is the true irony of this disease, for I do have feelings. I do not wish to kill, but I cannot resist the great hunger that compels me to feed. The only thing I have found that will sustain me is the fresh, warm blood of a living human donor. When I take their blood, I dare not leave them breathing. That is the worst thing I could do. Once I pierce the skin with my fangs, the person either dies or goes on to exist as I do for all eternity. I am careful not to create another of my kind by not finishing the job. I must be sure every drop of blood has been drained, that their heart beats no longer. And you must think what a terrible thing I am. You are quite right. But you must also realize that it is a disease. I have no control over my actions. And when I feed, I feel only overwhelming satisfaction. When I finish and look upon my victim, I feel a great sorrow at what I have done. No matter how great the sorrow, the hunger is 1,000 times greater. Even in sleep, I find no relief. For every time I sleep, I dream, and I see every soul I have ravaged. They are relentless and are always with me. I cannot forget a single one of my victims, and they are many. Each horrified face passes through my dreams, one at a time, until I wake from the nightmare into the true nightmare that my life or non-death has become. Now, I will tell you how I became one of the undead. I do not know when or how the first vampire was born. It is said that it was a spell cast by an evil witch on a poor, unsuspecting young man who shunned her amorous advances. It could have been someone that welched on a deal with the devil, or an alien that crash landed on our little planet. There are many theories, but no one knows for sure. As for me, I had a fairly good childhood, a loving mother, and a hard-working father. The times were much different then. I had a job at 4 years of age, working beside my father, planting, weeding, and later harvesting for a local farmer. It was hot, tiring work, but I was with my father, which made me very happy and content. We came home every day at dusk, tired, dirty, thirsty, and hungry. My mother always had 2 wooden tubs made from a wine barrel cut in half, filled with water at just the right temperature. The water was cool, but not cold, and very refreshing. After our baths, Father and I were treated to a filling and good-tasting dinner. We lived in a log cabin my father and grandfather built from the trees cleared off of a lot my grandfather won in a game of chance. Every night my mother would sing me to sleep. Her voice, like her manner, was soft and gentle. By age 14, I took a liking to smithing and took a job with the local blacksmith. I was in charge of keeping the fire going and the cooling bucket full of water. Every day at about 2 o'clock, Mary Armstrong would pass the blacksmith shop. She would peek into the open door and wave at me with her lovely and rather toothy smile. She had a cute, small-featured, lightly freckled face. I had known Mary since my farming days with my father. Her father owned the farm at which we worked. I had always been entranced by her beauty. She had long, flowing golden locks and deep blue eyes, as deep and blue as the ocean on a cloudless day. I had only 3 years of schooling, but I did learn to read and write. Mary had a hand in that and spent many hours allowing me to read to her. The fact that she would spend the time with me was all the incentive I needed. By age 17, I had saved enough money to buy a little piece of earth, and my father helped me build a small cabin. Now I felt it was time to ask Mary to marry me. She eagerly agreed, and we were wed in the church we had both grown up in. The whole town attended the blessed event, and the reception was held outside. It had been a beautiful, warm spring day, and the party lasted well into the star-filled night. 9 months later, almost to the day, my first son was born. No words can adequately describe the love I felt for that boy. At 4, like me and my father, I was able to bring him to the blacksmith shop to work with me. My chest poked out so far with pride I could barely see the ground. When Mary had our second son, I felt an even more overwhelming love for her. It only increased as I gazed upon my wonderful family. We had made it. The blacksmith was going to move away and ask if I would like to buy the business. Even with 4 mouths to feed, I had managed to save enough money to make the purchase. That very night, I was riding home to tell Mary of our good fortune on our only horse, Thunder, so named for the sound his hooves made as each in succession made contact with the ground. We would be able to afford a bigger place, closer to town, as we had outgrown the little cabin. It had only been a few moments since the sun had gone down. The road was little more than a path by today's standards, and was lined on both sides by thick underbrush and a wall of trees. Suddenly, the horse reared, and I was thrown to the ground. There was a loud crack, then raging pain as I realized I had broken my leg. As I writhed on the ground, clutching my busted limb, a dark figure appeared over me. The only thing I could make out in the darkness were these red, almost glowing eyes. I struggled futilely with the creature, but it quickly overpowered me. I felt the fangs as they plunged deep into my skin and pierced my jugular vein. All the pain left my body as the creature relieved me of my life-giving fluid. The bone in my leg somehow healed itself as the monster continued to slowly suck the life out of me. Unfortunately for me, a horse and buggy bumped noisily down the road and scared the monster off. You see, he did not finish the job, and I was created. Over the next few days, I began to change. Only red meat, still oozing blood, could satisfy my voracious hunger. The meat had to be raw or barely cooked. Soon, even that was not enough. My family, I once looked upon with love and great joy, now were little more than a meal. When I began to feed, feeding was everything. There was nothing else. That night, that horrible night, still haunts me more than any other. My wife was soundly sleeping beside me when I awoke, engulfed in an uncontrollable hunger. I no longer saw my wife. I saw only relief from great hunger. I did not merely drain her of blood with my newfound fangs. I actually chewed and swallowed bits of her soft, warm flesh.